place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, April 18th, 2025, and this is episode 1028 of Living Free in Tennessee, and it's a Friday show, so it's time for our Homestead Happening show, and as usual, Tactical's late because I changed the time from 12:30 to 8 a.m. today. And I did that. Well, partially it's Good Friday, and things start happening in the afternoon today for a lot of people. But also, we have the Living Free in Tennessee Spring Workshop that starts next week, and I've got people coming out to help set up. And I thought, what about if we just do the show early, then before everybody gets here, then I can actually concentrate on how the setup's going to go. So it was sort of a win-win for that. We're going to talk today about Tales from the pasture. We've had 2 more lambs born, so wanted to update y'all on that. Talk about spring hitting the holler and those sorts of things, and a whole bunch of other, like I've been discovering wild edibles around. So there's lots of different things that we can talk about today. Of course, if you have any questions at all or comments or things you want to hear about from Tactical or me, my fictional Tactical right over here, you can do that by putting the word question in all caps in the comments. Right now, I'm kind of hoping that the print job I just sent with my notes went to the printer. We were having problems with the printer this morning. So, oh, look, magically delivered by Mama Sauce, who almost managed not to be in camera for that. Oh, I have my notes now. So we'll be talking about that. Before we jump into that, though, I do want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and it's the Living Free in Tennessee Spring Workshop. We had one person unable to come who's donated their deposit to whoever wants their ticket. Tickets are $600. A $200 deposit has been paid, which means if you've been not coming to the Spring Workshop, there's one ticket available where you only have to pay $400, which is kind of like good luck, right? So check that out at livingfreeintennessee.com. Click on workshop to get that ticket. I also want to thank 2 sponsors today. The first sponsor is John Pugliano of the Wealth Studying Podcast, who will be here in person, live on site next week, talking about how to integrate permaculture practices into your investment strategy so you can make money. And he's also going to be walking us through ham radio. So it's going to be a fun one with John Pugliano. Anyway, he has a pretty cool podcast called the Wealth Studying Podcast. Check that out at investablewealth.com. Our second sponsor of today's show helps you in lightning storms. That's right. It's EMP Shield, empshield.com. They make a device that protects your whole house from unpredictable things that happen with your power. I've got devices installed on both of my electrical services. And so when all of those twisty, turny, thunderstormy things go over, I'm not worried that my computer and my fridge and all of that stuff's going to get fried. If the lines or the transformer gets struck by lightning, check them out at empshield.com. They have a $25,000 replacement insurance policy, which is pretty darn cool. So if their device fails for whatever reason, you can actually use that insurance policy for replacement. And I don't know of any other device on the market that is that confident about their device to have that kind of a guarantee. empshield.com. Coupon code LFTN will get you $50 off a device. And if your device gets fried, because what happens when it works is it gets fried instead of your other stuff, you can send them the broken one back, and then they will send you a replacement for $50, which I also think that's cool because you're spending, $350 or so. It depends on which device you get, but you're spending that money. And then if your device gets fried, or you're like, another $350. No, you send the broken one back, and they give you a new one. So that's kind of cool too. I like that about them. Anyway, with that, it's time to go into the main topic of today's show. Tactical, how are you doing this morning?
Apparently better than Chestnut, who says she hasn't had breakfast.
She has not had breakfast. Do you want to scoot closer to me so they can see you on the video?
Chestnut's in the way.
No, she's not.
She was.
She'll get out of the way.
She just moved.
Yeah. Hopefully Mama Sauce will hear her plight, hear her plea for food, and give her food. Chestnut's not even supposed to eat till 9 o'clock.
I know that.
Chestnut's a lying liar. So I just want to say,
Chestnut knows that.
Hey, good morning to y'all in the live stream. I know we totally changed the time last minute. So Martinson family is here. Jenny is here. Carrie is here. And Skane's girl is here. Hi.
I'll see most of y'all next week.
Well, yeah, that's true. Okay, so we're going to talk first about the pasture stuff because that was the most exciting part of the week, right? And that was actually the most time-consuming part of the week. So on was it Friday or Saturday? Friday?
I think it was Friday because she was in the barn.
It was
I think
after
2
Homestead
days.
happenings, though, wasn't it?
Probably.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so Tactical went up to check after Homestead happenings on the sheep because we knew we had 2 pregnant sheep due sometime in April, don't know when exactly. And one of them, like the last time I'd seen her, I was like, I think she's going to go soon, like today or tomorrow. And so he did his last, it was an evening check-in. So it was like your 5 p.m. His 5 p.m., like, I'm going to put him to bed. Good morning, Carrie. Welcome to the live stream. Carrie from Strong Roots Resources. He went to check on her and he drove up the pasture. And what did you see?
So where they were at the time, I had to go through this cut in the woods. And when I cleared the tree line, I saw a little white rectangle-ish blob laying next to one of the dogs.
And you have to understand the dogs are in a different paddock.
Yeah, the dogs are separated right now. So it's like, I just knew as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's a baby. And this mom, like, the whole time, I was like, Stormy is further along than she is.
Yeah, so you thought it was Stormy's.
No, I didn't think it was Stormy's. Like, that day, you were like, she's oozing or whatever, and it's like, she's close, and it's like, well, that's actually surprising, because I could have sworn Stormy was going to go first.
Yeah, so basically, the mom had the baby. The baby got separated from the mom by the electrical fence, because babies can get under it.
Yeah.
And so the livestock guardian dog was hanging out with it, and it's a good thing we checked, because that baby would have died.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't getting colostrum, because it was not with his mom. So then he queues up on Zello and he's all, I don't know if you can hear this, but we've got a baby on the ground or something, or a lamb on the. It was like, it was clear from the tone of his voice that it felt like an emergency to him. So I broke the cardinal rule of female homestead prep rules. And I did not pee before I went to the pasture. I just got ready, got gloves. And we're down a 4-wheeler, so it's like he's going to have to come down the hill to get me, or he's going to have to wait for me to walk all the way to the tippy top of the pasture, which takes a while. So I queued up and said, hey, I'll be over. Come down and get me if you need me faster. And I drove my car over and up as high as I could get with my car. And then I saw him come down the pasture and go to the barn. I'm like, well, it must not be that much of an emergency because he didn't come straight to me. And he was getting his sheep medical kit, which was at the barn. And then we drove up the hill, and sure enough, there was a baby. And what had happened is Tactical had tried to give the baby to the mom, and the mom rejected it because she was a brand new mom. She'd had a baby. She got separated from her baby. And that critical 2-hour period of time when they bond had started out with her not even thinking she had a baby, basically.
Yeah.
So she was not having it. She's like, yeah, that hurt. Okay, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, she wasn't even in the mode of like, where's my baby?
Yeah, she was just over it.
Yeah, she was just like, whatever. And she's like, oh, it's a baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
We called Nighthawk over to help too, because extra hands. And he, at the time, his 4-wheeler was working. No, his wasn't either.
Yeah.
He had to drive. He walked up the hill from the, so he walked up the hill. He was like, that was quite a walk. And we decided to bring her down to the barn and make a jug and tie her up so that she would be forced. We were grafting the baby to her at this point, which is the term they use for actually taking a baby from another mom and getting it oriented with a mom.
Yeah.
But basically we were grafting her own baby on her, and we had to get the sheep down the hill and we had to catch the mom who didn't want to be caught. And then I also had this baby who I didn't want him to get cold. And he was, or she actually, it turned out to be a girl. We kept calling it him. She was not unwarm. Like she may have gotten some colostrum before she got separated. I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
Or she was literally like just got born, but she was cleaned off. So I assume that Miles cleaned her off by licking her.
Yeah,
And then she smelled funny to mom. Yeah. So what happened from there is that he caught the mom. Nighthawk held the mom. I had the baby. He went all the way back to my house to get his Jeep to drive up the hill that we were going to load the mom into the back of. And while Nighthawk was holding the mom, I was like, here, drink. And so the little one got colostrum up in the pasture a few times while we were waiting, because I was like, well, might as well get the nursing started now, because what'll happen is they'll drink the milk and then they start smelling like their mom, and then their mom is like, oh, you're mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she was still rejecting it even after that. So brought her down the hill. What did the youth think of her ride down the hill?
She did all right at first, and then once we got to the steep, bumpy section, she was like, nope, I'm done, and I'm going somewhere. And it's like, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, Nighthawk was holding
You're
her
in a
too.
giant metal box.
Yeah. I just hear a lot of bumping around. I'm like, oh, that's not good. I carried the lamb by foot down because I didn't want it to get, the baby lamb, so that it wouldn't get panicked or anything. I was trying to keep it calm at least, because I knew the mom wasn't going to be calm on the other end. So then we took some fencing and made a small area and tied her up. Well, at first we just put the baby with her because I was hoping she'd just let it nurse, but she didn't.
Yeah.
And so tied her up. And while that was going on, like I just finished tying her up, my phone rings. It's my friend Trisha, who also has sheep. And I'm like, hey, she's like, what's going on? I'm like, I've got a mom rejecting its lamb. She's like, oh, and it's like, at this point, it's like 6 or 7. I don't even know what time it was. It was probably 7.
It was evening.
It was dark. It was almost dark.
It was right around dinner time.
Yeah. Yeah, because mom was cooking dinner. She started dinner. This is how it went down. Mom starts cooking dinner. I'm like, I'll come in and help. Oh, no, I'm going to the pasture instead. She said, I have a head gate, which is way easier because the mom can't see the lambs, and she can stand up and sit down and get food and water. And then they just sort of nurse on her until they smell like her. And eventually she's like, oh, you're mine. And she'd had the same issue. So she made this head gate. And she's like, come get my head gate and use that, because that's way better than having to tie her up. And I'm like, great, because I don't think the tying up is going to hold her in place with what we have to tie her to.
Yeah.
So we left to go get that. And she's a 45-hour drive away. So we left to go get that. It's, at this point, it's nighttime, right? Because that's what's happening. And Nighthawk, I was like, check on her every hour to see what's up, because she was tied up. And what Nighthawk did instead was come back over here, eat dinner, and then go back there and stayed with her the whole time.
Yeah.
And just hung out in the barn watching. And sometime like after we went out to Trisha's and got the head gate and loaded that up and talked to her for 15 minutes, and then we're on the way back, I like queue up on Zello. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he said, well, she came out of the tied up situation and she's letting the baby nurse. And I was like, well, that's a good sign. He's like, do you want me to tie her up again? I was like, no, don't do that. Let's just see what happens, because I already know that she's gotten colostrum, the little baby has. So we drove back, and we get in at about, I don't know, 8:30.
Oh, it was way later than that.
Was it? Okay, 8:30 or 9. Nighthawk's just leaving the barn. We go in and watch for a while, and it looks like she has started bonding with the baby. She's not super attentive, but letting it nurse. And so we decided not to put her in the head gate, not to tie her up again, and just left it.
But she stayed in a little bitty pen.
Yeah, but they were in a little jug. That's called a jug. And he and I agreed that she'd get. Was I checking on first thing in the morning? Yeah, I was the one on first thing morning check for that one, because I get up before you.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, so then I was like, I'll go check on her and see what's up. So I got, when I got up in the morning, I did it. So then I came back and ate dinner and went to bed. got up in the morning, and when I came in, she did this thing that mom sheeps do where they push their baby behind them and stand in front of them and look at you like, don't touch my baby. Once I saw that, I knew that they had bonded. So I was actually pretty happy about that because I didn't want another bottle baby.
Agreed.
Yeah. So that was how we got that done. My friend Trisha, who we borrowed the head gate from, she had to have 3 days or 2.5, 3 days of tying a mom up before the mom let the baby's nurse for one of hers. So that made a huge difference. And I was just glad it only took us like a few hours. And if we would have just been patient, it would have worked. But if we hadn't gone to get the head gate, then I would have then we would have had a problem. Like, that's sort of my philosophy on that. So anyway, that was really cool. Hello, Pack Rat and Carson. Welcome to the live stream. So that was the first thing that happened. And I'm like, okay, so Little Sheep, who was our bottle baby, is due to go next. And I was the most worried about that birth out of all the births for 2 reasons. One, that's the baby we bottle fed last year, so I just like her, right? I'm more attached to that sheep than other sheep. Right? Hi, Cece. Yeah. Cece's come to say hello, too.
Cece's come to say that she hasn't eaten breakfast
yet. Well, take her breakfast away then.
Well, no. She hasn't been fed. The other one has.
Oh, the other one can go outside and Cece can be fed then.
Yeah, I just swapped them.
Okay, cool. Cece does not like to eat her breakfast. Okay, so then it was like, well, we need to check Little Sheep all the time. And she's little, like as her name says, she's smaller than everybody. I didn't want her pregnant, but she was. And I wasn't sure how birthing was going to go for her because she's so small.
Yeah.
And the vet didn't think it was a problem her size. The vet's like, no, she'll be fine. So, because she's also the only one who's ever seen the vet about being pregnant.
Yeah.
So, and if you listen to Monday's show, you know what happened there. But I'm going to go cliff notes for those of you who did not listen to Monday's show, that she ended up going into labor Sunday night at 11 o'clock. And at midnight, I had to pull the baby because it got stuck. And I was sure the baby was dead, and I was sure I was going to kill Little Sheep. And luckily, both lived, and she had a little girl, and we thought there were 2 in there, and there was only 1 in there. Oh, she had a little boy. Sorry. Yeah, I thought it was a girl at first, and then I realized later when the sun came up and I could see better that it was a boy. Yeah. Dude looks like a lady.
There's several jokes in there that
I made him laugh. So we had to bring her down the hill too, and the only way I could get her down the hill was by stealing her baby and walking away with it. And then because she instantly bonded to her baby. It was not a problem at all. So we took her down the hill to the barn too. And I was like, listen, if the vet's going to have to come look at her, because I really had to pull hard, it'd be easier if she's down the hill. So that happened. And yesterday we took them and we let them stay in the barn for a couple of days while they were bonding. And Stormy's little one was not nursing very aggressively.
Yeah.
Now he is. Now he's
getting better.
He's getting better with it, but he was like, when he came up, he couldn't stand up on his own. It took him a long time to stand up. It took him a long time to get colostrum. He was not the most vibrant birth I've ever seen, but he also was stuck in that birth. She may have been in labor for longer than we even know.
Yeah. Cause I mean, it was a while before, like from the time I first saw to when that one got pulled was a while.
It was 1 hour.
Yeah, that was long.
Yeah. And sheep usually give birth within half an hour of going into labor that we've seen.
Yeah.
When they're in active labor. But so we brought them back up the hill yesterday, which also required me stealing the other one's baby so that they would follow us up the hill because we didn't drive them up the hill. And then now they're up there. But Little Sheep also has signs of infection. So she has a lot of swelling in that area, which is not a surprise, but I'm afraid she's developing an infection. So I'm going up, or he's going up with a thermometer to get her temperature. So because the first sign with sheep, you're not going to see that they don't feel good because they don't show that they don't feel good until they really don't feel good. And then it's like crisis mode. I'm going to go up, or you're going to go up, or we're both going to go up and get a temperature on her and see if she's above 104. And if she is, we're calling the vet because it is Good Friday. Most people are very busy this afternoon. And if vet needs to see her, then I'd rather get that request in sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And that's that, like the vet will come see the sheep in an emergency if you can get her attention, but I would imagine that her weekend is super booked with Easter related activities.
Yeah.
So that's the update. And Jenny says, are y'all taking them to the vet or is the vet coming to you? So usually when we have had the vet out, which has been very rare, the vet comes to us. And the vet that I work with is more, she works with cattle a lot more than sheep. Like she works with some sheep over at Peaceful Pastures, but mostly cattle. And she's super nice. And she sees her, like the way she takes her interactions with me is she's coaching me through being able to handle stuff myself.
Which is nice.
Like if somebody needs antibiotics, I have to go to her and she has to agree. And then she sells me the antibiotics. So it's not like I get to choose antibiotics, but basically something like pulling the animal, the babies out or those sorts of things, or even giving shots and that kind of stuff. She shows me how to do it because she knows it's cost prohibitive to pay a vet to drive out to your house half an hour twice a day to give a shot if that's what you need to do. So, but we did bring little sheep to her earlier this year to get an ultrasound, which is why we thought there were 2 in there, because it like to have her out's going to be $80. Like to go to her place was like $20 because it took her 10 minutes in the middle of her day when she wasn't even being a veterinarian. She was being a farmer that day. And she was really nice to me on that particular charge.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I happen to have this little ultrasound thing at my farm here. Come on out. And that's why we thought there were 2. But we also we're ultrasounding very late in the pregnancy. So it could be, it's harder to discern at that point. So anyway, yeah, it's really nice. She's near retirement age though. And I do need to be thinking about what the future looks like if we need, but we hardly ever need a veterinarian. I haven't used any antibiotics on anybody in the entire flock since they were first here in the first 2 weeks when one of the young rams got a brain infection. And then we didn't sell that meat because we had used antibiotics on him to keep him alive. We ate that meat. And he was not allowed to pass on his genetics. So other than that, she hasn't been out for the sheep except for that one time.
I think that was the only time.
Yeah, and then other than that, I've just been on the phone with her. We've had a couple things happen where she died, and she's like, "Yeah, that animal's going to die, and there's basically nothing I can do. I can come out and give it antibiotics, but it will probably die anyway. Like I've never seen it work."
Yeah.
And we've also taken the track of when we've had prolapses, we process the animal rather than put a stitch in there. Or I have a harness now. I was not entirely sure that little sheep wasn't prolapsing because of that bulge in her back.
Yeah.
So she did wear a prolapse harness for a while. So, yeah.
Yeah, and she's also the kind of vet that's like, animal gets sick, you call her. She asks 2 questions and she's like, yeah, that animal's going to die.
Yeah. Or she's like, oh, it's this and what you need to do is that. Or I actually need to come out. So the thing is, if we have an infection, she actually needs to come out.
Yeah. But a lot of people would get pissy about her being that direct. And it's like, no, I'm dealing with a sick animal. I want you to say what you need to say in as few words as possible because I'm dealing with a sick animal.
That's why I liked Dr. Little so much before. He because he was softer about how he said it, but he would just look at me and say, Nicole, your cat is 18 years old. It's in renal failure. Then he'd give me that look. And I'd be like, so it's time. He's like, it's time, but I'm not going to tell you it's time. I'm like, okay. I always appreciated that about Dr. Little. And, a lot of vets, I don't know if people sue them because they say it's time. And then in that one case, it wasn't time. So when you process post prolapse, are you bottle feeding or grafting? The babies do not survive that. So the only way to keep the babies alive in that situation is to push everything back in, stitch the vagina closed, or wear the harness, get the mom through the birth, and there's a chance the mom dies at that point, and then you're bottle feeding. If the mom doesn't die and is intact, she can then raise the babies, and then once she's done raising the babies, you process her so she's not pregnant again. And all of that was not something I felt I could take on. So when we had prolapses in our flock, we just processed them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a fun thing, for sure.
No.
And I had, by the time we had the possible third prolapse in the flock in Stormy, which turned out not to be a prolapse, by the way, I was like, okay, I've read enough about what we need to do with the harness to try without it torturing the animal. But by the time there's that much out of the animal, that was also part of my issues. There was a lot of inside on the outside. By the time we saw the prolapses with Stormy, I saw what was a bulge, and I saw evidence of like grass and leaves inside her. And I was like, well, it could be that it's popping out and popping back in. So we put the prolapse harness on her without having to push everything back in.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she would have prolapsed had we not done that. She was out of the harness for the last 2 weeks. And nothing, like when she gave birth, everything stayed where it was supposed to stay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing didn't come out and also stayed. Everything stayed.
Yeah.
So good morning, Beth, Emily, David. Welcome to the live stream. Sorry, we're a little behind on acknowledging our live people. Happy Good Friday. It seems like a weird thing to say, considering what Good Friday's about. Yeah. Anyway, the rabbits are due to start delivering next week. So today we need to start getting the nesting boxes into the cages, and it's time to move the man out of his co-living situation with that last female.
Yeah.
So Tactical doesn't like that.
Well, it just needs to get done.
Yeah. I can probably start taking on, like, I'll get the nesting boxes ready and in there. And at least because the two that don't have the dude in there are going to give birth first.
Yeah.
And they're due towards the end of next week. So I just like to have it in there a week just in case there's an early birth, which has never happened in the history of rabbits on this property that they give birth early.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have had them give birth when they couldn't get pregnant, though. That was a fun time.
That was an
It turns out they can get pregnant if there's just a mesh wall between the buck and the doe. That's what we learned. They figured out how to get that done. I don't know. That was the funny thing about that. Okay, we are transplanting tomatoes. I will have tomatoes for sale at the spring workshop. It turns out I needed 20 tomato plants, and I have so many tomato plants. And today, hopefully, I'll find some pots because I've already got 20 potted at this point in like solo cups that I used last year. And I'm going to put a few in the soil around the property and see how that goes. We've got some really good soil in one of my raised beds right now that's banging. So bed number 3 did the best with the soil.
Okay.
So it has biochar, rabbit poop, and creek soil, creek dirt. That's what that one has. So that worked well. Are you transplanting anything?
I have a couple of starts that some stuff's gonna make it, some stuff's probably dead. Some stuff was probably dead and is actually bouncing back, but I've got some herbs and stuff that are gonna go in, but I've also been playing the what died and what didn't game.
What's that?
Walking around and seeing out of plants that went in last year who made it through the winter. I'm fairly certain the rosemary in the rock garden's dead.
How many rosemary plants did we kill this year?
I'm not sure yet. There's
He goes,
There's a couple I've seen that it's like, well, that's dead. Oh, wait, no, it's not. And it's like, there's one kind of at the top of the hill next to the pond that was like, yeah, that's dead. Oh, wait, there's like 5 or 6 green leaves on it.
Hey, I'm 18 years in on this homestead with the dream of one day having a rosemary plant that's robust.
Yeah, well, there's
18 years I've been trying.
There's a couple of them closer to the pond that made it. There's one by the pond that I'm fairly certain is actually dead.
Yeah.
And then it's like the one in the rock garden, it's like, yeah, the rosemary's probably dead, but the, like, I don't know how old it is at this point, 8 months old sage plant is still alive.
Yeah, the sage plants are really doing well. Although my one in the aquaponics system that is now 7 years old looks like crap. It got nailed by the freeze.
Well, fortunately, all the rest of the sage plants around the property all came from
They
that
all
one.
come from that one. Well, and it's got a couple of leaves, so I'm like, I'm just gonna let you and we'll see what you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been a whole. I've been playing that game too, where I'm walking around the property and some of the trees we put in last year look like they're dead, but then I'm like, we'll give it another month because everything's a month behind. How's the morel patch doing? I have a morel patch, just so you guys know. I've lived here 18 years, 17 years in. We finally discover I have a morel patch. And I bet it was there the whole time, and I just missed the 2-day window when you have to see the morel patch via the morel patch.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's several places where I've seen morels around here, and like we saw what, 3 this year?
4
4.
4 morels out of the morel patch, which gave us a lot more morels last year. He's like, they're past their prime. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go look anyway. And they were not past their prime. They had dried. So you like when you pick morels, if you want to preserve them, you dry them. They just dried on their own because there wasn't enough rain in the 3-day period of time they came out.
I know.
Which is weird. But you could totally finish drying those and eat them. Or you can just eat them, rehydrate them and eat them. But a month ago, last year, is when that same patch popped. So we are a month late on the morels.
Yeah.
Which is, for me, that piece of information tells me other things are a month late, which is why I'm giving like the persimmon tree some leeway. I wonder what that is. Interesting. Okay. Weird. My phone went off. That was Zello, guys.
Yeah.
That was what's his nose?
Salsa?
Yeah. That's actually kind of funny how that happened. Okay. So with knowing that things are a month behind, it doesn't mean everything's a month behind, but I will tell you that usually at the spring workshop, all the trees have greened out. All the trees have not greened out. They're just starting to put on leaves. And Jen says that bucket rosemary was pretty big when I left. What bucket rosemary?
Oh.
It didn't make it.
I didn't know there was a rosemary in a bucket.
There was. It didn't make it. It didn't make it through the freeze that year. Yeah, rosemary doesn't love Tennessee. I have other friends who have successful rosemary plants. They're like, if you can get it through 3 to 4 years, then it's really robust. But if you just get it through one season, that's not enough. So
yeah,
I had fire ants kill 2 plants.
Yeah. I mean, we had some in North Carolina that were 4 feet in diameter, but we were also on the coast.
Yeah, Tori, the mom says, your rosemary is like my lavender. We're trying to get lavender started here too, but I don't think you put it in the ground yet.
No, I did get that one on the ground.
Oh, sweet.
I want that one.
Okay, he cares about that plant. Yeah, so we have an Arkansas black apple tree that hasn't put any leaves on or shown any sign of life that I'm going to have Carrie look at when he gets here later today. And I think it's dead because all like the pear trees are all leafed out. Everything else is all leafed out in the fruit department. So I have a suspicion that 2 0-degree weeks was not good for the brand newly planted Arkansas black tree and some rabbit damage around the base. We needed to put one of those things around it to protect it. In fact, maybe after the workshop, I'll sit around cutting those. Okay. Except for in May, I'm on the road like for most of the month. Naturally. So Skanes Girl says they don't like North Louisiana either. I think for what happens here is they come out of dormancy and then get nailed. And then they go dormant and then they come out of dormancy and then they get nailed. And then they go dormant and then they come out of dormancy. And that third time they get nailed, because it's always 3, is the time that they're like, I don't have the heart to go on. I know you tried. I know you want me here. I don't want to be here anymore. This is too much. And then they die. That's what I see happening with rosemary plants. Unless the fire ants like build their hill over the top of the stupid thing, which has also happened.
It's also a death sentence for fire ants.
Well, I need to go on a murder tirade. Like they're in one of my raised beds.
That's not surprising.
No, and I've been like killing them in that raised bed over and over, so I'm not getting the queen. So I don't know.
Time to try borax.
No, not in the raised bed. He's like, oh, good point. So as far as wild plants, though, have you seen the wild mustard?
Probably.
So last week when I was all discombobulated for because my computer got a whole cup of coffee spilled on it, and then it broke. It did end up breaking from that, but it was the keyboard protector protected the whole computer. The USB-C port, on the other hand, got it from underneath, and I had to have that replaced. And so I was using my backup computer, which was incapable of processing audio the way we needed it to. And I couldn't find anything because it wasn't set up for me. Luckily, most of my stuff is stored in servers that are not here. So that part wasn't the problem. The problem was that I was not efficient with that computer. So I was all discombobulated last week. And then what happened?
I don't know.
Tactical doesn't remember what happened. I went through what was available, like from a wild edible standpoint, and totally missed that the wild mustard is blooming right now, so it's available, and it was available last week too. The watercress is not available because the ducks ate it all, but then Ryan Steva sent me a picture of his watercress patch, which tells me the ducks ate all my watercress. So now we've got to address that issue. And yarrow is up, and Tactical was driving me down the pasture yesterday, because we only have one 4-wheeler, so I always ride on the back now. And he was like, he pointed to that and said, is that yarrow? And I was like, yep. So we've got yarrow just naturally coming up in the pasture too. So it's definitely,
First year I've seen it in the pasture.
Yeah. Use boiling water on the ant beds before you plant. Yeah, the thing I'm dealing with, Beth Emily, is that bed's already planted. So I'm using orange oil. But if once I like reset that bed, I will totally do that. That sounds like a good idea. So those are the things I'm seeing around, as well as like Carrie's been doing a really fun series on wild edible flowers from trees.
Yeah.
And I think this week the sassafras was on the list. But I didn't see any of our sassafras blooming, but I think it's all too young. So except for if you go to the tippy top of this ridge, there's a whole sassafras grove. But they're all so tall, there's no way I'm getting the flowers. And then there's one sassafras tree that was over on George's that got destroyed when they redid the driveway.
It's not surprising.
Yeah. So they also put rocks in air conditioner and cave.
No, they didn't.
Oh, okay.
It's actually really opened up.
Okay. Well, I was like, that's great. But the minute that the water pressure comes, even though those rocks are heavy, they will get pushed out.
They stopped 20 feet short of air conditioning.
Cool. Cave. Okay. It looked like air conditioning cave had been. So last time somebody covered air conditioning cave with rocks, it then rained and the rocks ended up across the road and in the creek.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to talk to Johnny about that because I was like, just so you know, but I hadn't looked at it carefully enough. So that's good. But I didn't want him to have like the negative repercussion of that happening.
The only reason I know that is because I was over there with Nighthawk for something, looking at something, and it was like, no, that's actually over there.
Yeah.
And we looked at it.
Sweet. Strong Roots Resources says black locust is also blooming, and those flowers are also edible.
You're going to make me say bad words.
I think you should harvest some black locust flowers for our salad tonight.
I don't think they have any flowers on them. They're putting leaves on.
Yeah.
Which,
well,
I mean,
Carrie will be here, so we can have him. We can have him help us with that.
The bright side of that is the fact that now I can just take the pair of pruning shears in my hand, and as I drive through the four-wheeler, I can just lean over and snip off locust sprouts.
It might not be black locust. It might be honey locust that you're snipping.
Either or.
Yeah.
They both need to die.
Yeah. So, Carrie, Tactical's on a mission to get rid of thorny things on the property, and that qualifies as a thorny thing. Tori says, speaking of never blooming, my attic kiwi is like 8 years old and never flowers, so I'm debating getting a new one and planting in a different location. Arctic. Do you have a boy or a girl? One of my kiwis looks dead right now, by the way. I was going to have Carrie look at that too because a freaking fire ant hill started there. I need to go orange oil that as well. The thing is, you have to very carefully spot orange oil when there's a plant like that you want to keep alive because you don't want to just burn all the leaves with the essential oil.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that is what it is. Oh, she says she has one of each. I don't know why it's not flowering. And you're 8 years in? Interesting. The best part was me picturing you having a kiwi plant in your attic originally. That's all I'm going to say. I was like, why does she have a kiwi plant in her attic? Then she updated us. Ducks are in jail. Why are they in jail?
There's been a number of yard eggs, and their production is lower than I would expect. So I put them in jail
Yesterday.
3 days ago.
No.
Oh, no,
Day
yesterday was the second day.
Day before yesterday.
Yeah, so it was the day before yesterday. When I put them to bed last night, there were no eggs in the coop, so I'm going to give them probably most of the rest of the day in jail. I might or might not turn them loose in the afternoons so they get a little bit of free range time. But, yeah.
We will see. Yeah, you can let them in. Like at the end of the day, just let them out for an hour or two.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Because that might be part of what's affecting. We changed their habits. But it's protecting my watercress patch they destroyed. Can we go over to patch 2 and see if there's anything there? Because if not, I'm going to ask Steva to bring me watercress from his watercress and replant it.
I thought you already did.
I couldn't find it.
I don't know exactly where it is.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So I was thinking you could go look. There's a second watercress patch that's hidden in the woods that I was like, I'm not sure I'm looking in the right place, but I don't see watercress. It's possible the ducks got that one too. But if they didn't, we need to transplant some watercress into where the watercress is supposed to be and put fencing up to keep the ducks out.
Okay.
And I have an idea for the fencing that will wash out, but if it's there long enough to get it established, it'll probably be okay.
Okay.
Why are you smiling?
Because as soon as the fencing comes down, the ducks are going to eat all of it again.
Not necessarily. They forget where things are. But once they find a tasty thing, and the reason they were foraging that far is it was a time of year where they had to. Like once there's stuff closer in, they have a tendency to stay closer in.
Well, you're going to have to figure out how to get them to stay closer in because they're still going up there.
Yeah, well, if there's a fence in their way, they may just get used to the fence being there. But we may have to just keep putting it back up until we retrain the ducks not to go over there or fence them out of it completely.
Okay.
I don't know how to do that, though.
Very expensively.
It's a very nice watercress patch, usually. Right now, it's turning into a mint patch. The mint's up, by the way. If you want to forage mint tea, you can totally do creek mint at my house. There's a lot of it. Like we could actually harvest it at the spring workshop and go boil it and serve it as tea.
If you want to fence that the right way, it's going to be about a $500 to $1,000 watercress patch.
Okay. No, I don't want to do that, but I want to fence it the wrong way. Okay. Or we could fence them in here. If I'm going to put that kind of money into fencing, it's going to be here, not at somebody else's property.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So the community's been really helpful, and I'm thankful for everybody who's stopping by to help us out. Carrie's coming out today. Nighthawk will be down this morning. We're hanging the tarp wall this morning, and we're getting all the freezers and fridges where they need to be and on and plugged in and set up so that we can go to the store later today and pick up the store things like the heavy cream and put it away and finish pre-making things like chili that we serve at the spring workshop. So that's fun. And it's Easter weekend, and yet people are still stopping by. So I'm just really thankful for that, because I think without the extra hands this year in particular, with Mom's knee and my right hand not working too well, I would be panicked right now, and I'm not panicked. This might be the first spring workshop I'm not panicked. Would you say that?
Last year was pretty good.
I was panicked the whole time. I was going to die. I had just totaled my car. There was stuff everywhere. Every time we turned around, something broke. It was miserable last year. I was completely panicked the whole time. From Self-Reliance Festival until my spring workshop. With AJ here, helping. Trying to help as much as he could. And everything. It was like every time we took one step forward, we took 2 steps back. That was not better last year. You just didn't get yelled at as much last year.
Okay.
Because I decided not to yell at people when it wasn't their fault.
Okay.
Okay, what? You didn't realize that? AJ knew I was panicked.
Setup last year went great.
Getting from Self-Reliance Festival to setup was a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, Salima will be better soon. You're coming, right, next week? Because you're on my guest list, as I recall. So I don't think she filled out her form. Did you fill out your form? Did you get the email? If you didn't, you better reach out to me. It might snow today, contemplating where to put bunny colony. Hopefully it's not an existing bunny colony. I would say the only other thing should be had a setback. Just get your butt down here. Get your butt to Lancaster. It doesn't sound the same as get your butt to Camden. Yep. Red Flyer Media will be here. I think she arrives on Tuesday. Yep. Got to jump in the shower and get ready for work. I'll be listening. Yeah, we're about to wrap up anyway. So anything you guys have before we wrap up, you should let us know now. I have one more thing on my list that I want to talk about. Spring in the holler means something annoying. Do you know what that annoying thing is, Tactical? Yes, because I looked at your list, Nicole.
Yeah.
You know what it is?
Yep. And they're all about to die.
We're going to go on a murder spree. As much as I'm happy I can save a baby lamb and its mom, wood-boring bees have descended on the holler, and they're everywhere.
They're bad this year.
They're awful this year. So we are, Pack Rat says pollen and red wasps also bad. Like there's a wasp in the big outhouse that I need to go reset up after having it on its back and redoing the framing underneath. And I'm not going in there till that wasp is gone. And I saw yesterday, it's like right in the door, making a nest. That's your job.
Well, this is the first I'm hearing about it.
Yeah. I'm not sure Nighthawk took care of it yesterday when we found it. I wasn't going to tell you last night. You were too tired. He goes out with like...
No, she asked me to move freezers instead.
Yeah, he goes out with hand clippers and like just grabs it and takes it off.
It just depends on what I have.
Yeah. Which is kind of impressive. I'm going to give you chopsticks for this one. How's that sound? You can be Mr. Miyagi.
Okay.
Are you going to do it?
Probably not.
Probably not. You're going to use your clippers instead?
I'll probably pull the razor blade out of my pocket and cut them in half.
Okay. Yeah, he's a wasp murderer, which is very helpful. And wasps are like all over the place looking, but the wood-boring bees are the worst because they do help with pollination, but they also help with eating your entire Taj Mahaler. So we're going on a spree right now. to get as many of them murdered as possible before people get here. But when you're here for the spring workshop, you are more than welcome to play a game I call Bee Bat, where you take a bat and you hit the bees. It's really fun. We need to get some plastic bats for that if we don't have the plastic bat anymore.
Well,
So
the red wasp broke the standing treaty.
there's a standing treaty.
There was.
Yeah.
They violated the standing treaty of you don't screw with me and I won't screw with you. I got stung 3 times in 1 week.
This week?
No, this is like a while back. But
Okay.
it's like, okay, if you want to violate the treaty and go to war, we'll go to war.
I had that I had a treaty with some yellow jackets in my garden that were in the ground. I was weeding and I stepped back and it felt weird, and I had stepped right on the top of the yellow jacket next. And then I stepped away and they didn't sting me or look upset. And I was like, okay, you can stay in my garden and I will know you're there and I will not step on you. But if you sting me one time, you're out. I'm going to pour gasoline in my own garden just because I dislike you so much. They didn't sting me all year. They didn't come back the next year. So, yeah. Yeah, ticks are the worst this time of year too. Although ticks this year aren't that bad yet.
No.
Like you see, like we don't have that many. They're there.
I say that, but I pulled 2 seed ticks off yesterday.
Yeah, seed ticks are awful. Anyway, that's the update from the homestead this week. Next week there will be no shows because we have the spring workshop. We'll be back the next Monday. If you like the show and want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at Hollow Roast. 2, support our sponsors, man. We talked about them at the beginning of the show. That's John Pagliano of the Wealth Setting Podcast and EMP Shield with the coupon code LFTN. With that, guys, go out and make it a great week.